Donald Trump is really comfortable surrounding himself with lowlives and criminals. This particular segment from the Rachel Maddow show really gave me a chuckle because Donald Trump is quote-unquote Mr. Law and Order, but to be Mr. Law and Order, he sure has a bunch of felons surrounding him, working for him, his campaign, etc. Check this one out.
Take a look at this. Watch for the guy holding up his badge. This was a Trump campaign rally in Estero, Florida last week. Around 8,000 people were there. It was the day after a weekend of back-to-back bombings in New York and New Jersey and that attack at a mall in Minnesota. Republican candidate Donald Trump took a moment at the start of that rally that night to thank members of law enforcement for all their hard work and their service to this country.
Let me begin by thanking our incredible law enforcement officers who don't get the credit they deserve. But when I'm president, they will get the credit they deserve. What a fantastic job they do. What a fantastic job they do.
Did we get the shot in there of the guy holding up his badge when Trump was saying that? The guy, there we go. The guy standing behind Trump on the stage there, right, holding up his badge when Donald Trump praised law enforcement officers. That man is a former police officer. He's now retired. Now works as an airplane pilot. He's the pilot who has been entrusted by the Trump campaign with the responsibility of shuttling vice presidential candidate Mike Pence and his family around the country from rally to rally.
I'm a very strong Trump supporter. I'm a retired law enforcement officer, and I'm currently on Governor Mike Pence's flight operations team as one of his pilots during the campaign. Donald Trump and Governor Mike Pence are the law and order candidates.
That pilot for the Trump campaign was just relieved of his job on the Trump campaign after the Guardian newspaper was first to report that he currently faces criminal charges of aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. Last year, he allegedly drove over a coworker with his car on purpose 3 times, putting the guy in the hospital. The Trump campaign pilot has pled not guilty, but there is yet another pending case against him, this one dating back to 2014, in which he's accused of a sort of similar sounding thing. He's accused of recklessly driving into a woman with his motorcycle. Apparently, the court has been unable to find him in order to serve him with a summons in that case, maybe because he's been piloting Mike Pence around the country all this time, but not anymore. Also, in Georgia, the Trump campaign has just lost their longtime state executive director. It's a hard-fought race in Georgia, but they just lost their longtime state director there after his criminal record was revealed as well. He was arrested on multiple felony counts. And the Trump campaign manager for the state of Georgia ultimately ended up pleading guilty to criminal trespassing charges. He admitted he destroyed one person's laptop and slashed the tires of someone else's car. Trump's Georgia state director's criminal record was revealed by the local ABC affiliate last night. Shortly thereafter, he resigned from running the Trump campaign in that state. This follows the Trump campaign also losing its North Carolina state director in similar circumstances. They lost their North Carolina director after he was named as a defendant in a lawsuit for allegedly pulling a gun on one of his campaign staffers. The staffer and the Trump North Carolina campaign director were apparently in a car together, and according to the lawsuit, Donald Trump's North Carolina state director was driving the car when, quote, he produced a pistol, put his right index finger on the trigger, and drove the barrel into the staffer's kneecap. The Trump campaign's North Carolina director resigned shortly after news of that lawsuit came out. The elephant in the room, of course, here for the Trump campaign with all these things going on is of course, that the campaign's CEO also turns out to have a troubling arrest record, in his case, for domestic violence charges. Court records from 1996 show that Trump campaign CEO Steve Bannon was charged with 3 misdemeanors for allegedly attacking his then wife. The charges were misdemeanor domestic violence, battery, and dissuading a witness. Mr. Bannon pled not guilty, but the case was dismissed 6 months later when prosecutors said they couldn't track down the most important witness in the case, the alleged victim, his wife. According to court documents, his wife claimed that Mr. Bannon told her to leave town to avoid testifying. So, in Trump world, you can't pilot a plane for a vice presidential candidate with a criminal felony assault charge ahead of you, but you can run a presidential campaign even after allegedly intimidating your ex-wife into not testifying against you in your domestic assault trial. As for pulling a gun on a campaign staffer or running over a pal with your car, it's on the bubble. See if it gets reported. That's the state of things. That's what we know about the Republican presidential campaign's attitude toward these things among their staffers. And
that doesn't count that lady in Ohio, in a county in Ohio, that made those, let us call them colored comments about black people that resigned from his running his Ohio campaign.
We're going to find out how they deal with the next bit of legal drama ahead of them. Because this was the front page of the New Jersey Star-Ledger today. Wildstein says governor knew. Christie was told of bridge closing, ex-aide testifies. And then there's the Bergen Record, quote, loyal soldiers 9/11 boast. Wildstein testifies he told Christie of plot at World Trade Center Memorial. And here's the New York Post. Eating his words, Christie lied and laughed about Bridgegate. Those were the front pages of New York and New Jersey newspapers today as day 8 started in the Bridgegate trial against 2 former Christie allies for their alleged roles in shutting down lanes onto the world's busiest bridge, part of a planned political vendetta against a local mayor who committed the cardinal sin of not supporting Christie's re-election bid. The so-called mastermind of the plot, David Wildstein, the government's star witness, he's been on the stand now for 4 days. Governor Chris Christie has denied having any knowledge of the plot before it was happening or while it was happening, but David Wildstein has insisted this week under oath that Governor Chris Christie was aware of the political reasons behind the lane closures while they were taking place. Governor Christie is no longer just the governor of New Jersey, he's now also the head of Donald Trump's White House transition team, which means he's in charge of staffing up the White House, the federal government, should Donald Trump win the presidency in November, which is awkward given that 2 of his former staffers/appointees are now facing federal corruption charges, and a 3rd has pled guilty to helping them. And a 4th has been named in open court by the prosecution's star witness as also being aware of the Bridgegate scheme ahead of time. His name is Bill Stepien, and he happens to be Donald Trump's national field director now. So the Trump campaign has its own decisions to make about the behavior of its staffers and top-level operatives. But how bad is this going to turn out to be for Governor Chris Christie in New Jersey?
This is going to be interesting as hell because sooner or later they are going to go after Chris Christie and catch him lying. Stay tuned for more information.